Welcome to the show, Qharrison.
Yo, what's up? What's up?
It's a pleasure to meet you. Finally, you're a very busy man, and I understand why. NFTs, which is the topic of your latest book, are one of the hottest topics. Here we go. Here we go. The NFT Handbook, and we'll talk about it. But before we delve into the book, I wanted to ask you, Qharrison, NFTs are making the headlines every other day, or even every day. Many people in many industries, including the luxury industry, talk about them as the next big thing. And yet, when I talk to people directly or at conferences, I sense that they don't really understand the nature of NFTs, the technology behind them, and most importantly, the problem that they actually solve. Shall we set the record straight for good? What are
Yeah,
NFTs?
let's get to it. Let's get to it. So I like to think of NFTs as a way to create digital scarcity. And the literal name non-fungible token is something that can get really confusing. So let's first start off with what is an NFT from a fungible versus non-fungible standpoint.
Okay.
And we're on the podcast today. If I take a screenshot and send it to you, and you take a screenshot and send it to me, our screenshots are pretty equal. Our screens are going to see the same thing. If I've captured it, you've captured it, not much is going to change. Now, let's say I take the screenshot that we just took and I sign it and I add some computer graphics to it and I make a digital art masterpiece and I turn that into an NFT. There's only one of those that exists, and that has value because, I signed it and it came from me. And so I've thus created a digital collectible. And if we had done this before a few years ago, what would have happened is you could have sold it online, right? For sure. But once you put it online, someone could right click, save it, and they could send it to all their friends and print it. And effectively, there's no real true owner and there's no provenance. What NFTs have created is a way for us to verify who is the real owner. Someone might have a picture of your Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT, but only the wallet owner can actually access the community and, actually utilize that Bored Ape Yacht or that Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT for commercial or whatever purposes they want. And so there's a lot that gets into it, but I just like to think of NFTs as a way to create digital scarcity and or digital collectibles.
So, if I understand you well, it's the collectible part of it that makes NFT so happening.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, the collectibles, I feel like that's part of it, but there's also the communities that are being formed, right? So what is making it so big right now is the fact that for the first time ever, you can hop into a online, forum, find a few friends, and then you all can manifest these digital collectibles together. It's no different than video games, really. Video games have been doing this for, the last 10, 20 years. People go on Fortnite to play their battle royale game, but they get excited for new skins and avatar drops, right? And the thing about those is they're fungible. If I buy a Travis Scott, skin, or a Darth Vader skin, or a Marvel Avengers skin, and you have one, my skin's no different than yours. With NFTs, that changes a bit because each item ideally is a one-of-one unique NFT.
I get you. You showed me your book before, and you didn't have to because I read it from cover to cover. But what has prompted you to write a book as a co-author on NFTs, a detailed book in which you go into the details of the technicalities and the commercial aspect of those? Why did you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I took some time back in 2015, and me and a couple of my friends, we started one of the first digital art marketplaces on the blockchain called 23 Vivi. And this was on the Bitcoin blockchain. So we were trying to sell digital art way back when in 2015. And we learned a lot of things through that process. We ended up, shutting that company down a few years after the fact, just because the appetite for digital art was nowhere near what it is today in 2021. And so after returning money to our investors, we had all this knowledge and we never really knew what to do with it. And then the opportunity came forth in 2021 where, everyone wanted to buy digital art. And I kept getting a lot of calls. They were like, hey, this looks like 23 Vivi. Hey, this looks like Vivi. Hey, this looks like Vivi. And then eventually, I was just like, oh, okay, this is very similar. Like most people probably aren't going to understand, the value of an NFT today. And, I can probably teach you how to sell and buy and, collect it. Or I guess I could tell you how to sell and buy and create NFTs. And that's what I set out to do with Matt, my co-author. And, the cool thing about Matt is he's an attorney. So when you think about an NFT and we get past the collectibles and we start to talk about the smart contracts that are beneath NFTs, a smart contract is a contract, right? Yep. And a contract, ideally, like you don't want to just write your own contracts. You'd like to have ideally some type of attorney looking at it and helping you draft said contract. So it was cool to have a legal perspective on this.
Yes, I understand that, and I appreciate the legal aspect of NFTs, but there's a question that keeps popping in my mind. Okay, so this is a contract, and the contract is visible on the blockchain, and everybody can see where the transaction starts and where the transaction is going. But what makes contracts valuable is that we have centralized powers to enforce them, be it the state, the police, the legal system. Who does enforce a smart contract?
Well, there's a lot of different answers to this question. I think the easiest answer is, the blockchain is the transparency of the blockchain is what allows for self-governance. And I think like when you think about the decentralization element of just what Web3 represents, you have this notion that like in a perfect world, there is no one authority or figure that like says you're a bad actor, get off the chain. It's actually the entire community, right? And so today we're still figuring that out. You have protocols and definitely entities that are basically enforcing their ideas on some of the smart contracts. I mean, look at what OpenSea just did with airdropped NFTs. They said, hey, anybody that's not verified, we're going to hide the NFTs that have been dropped to people because there's a lot of spam. You're enforcing your beliefs on said wallets. Not every marketplace is going to operate like that, but when you have a layer of transparency that is on the platform, there are going to be people and tools and services that are created to enforce and create unique experiences that are built for specific use cases. And I feel like, it's super early, but if you buy Ethereum through Coinbase, they set the limit of how much Ethereum you can buy at a set time based on, your account type. I think that like there are the platforms that you utilize to get into Web3 that are going to be probably the biggest proponents of basically enforcing and acting on certain contracts. I mean, even looking at MetaMask and, the things that they did during the Russia-Ukraine situation, they got a little bit of pushback, but at the same time, it's in their power to do that because it's their platform. So Web3, we're working towards a world where we really do have the best answer for that question. But right now, the case study hasn't been written.
And it's early. I agree with you. You mentioned before digital arts. And yeah. I learned a lot from your book because, in fact, when NFTs like Beeple's Everyday sold for 69 million, not to mention Parks by the merged by Parks for 90 plus million, I mean, it caught many people by surprise.
Sure.
But in fact, digital art has been around for much longer than that. It's not an overnight success, isn't it?
No, digital art's been around for a long time. And because we are in this space where people finally have provenance, right? Like with the NFTs and the ability to create smart contracts with royalties, and they have some element where they can be perpetual. all that stuff's exciting, and it incentivizes an artist to now create digitally, because beforehand, you get fought by the collector because if I make a digital frame with, a wonderful digital masterpiece on it, the first thing the collector's going to do, or the buyer's going to do, is they're going to say, hey, how long is this supported? Is there a warranty? If the screen goes black, can I get my art back? With NFTs, you don't have to worry about that. And so I think that's the cool thing about it. And that's why you're starting to see an uptick in digital art interest, because now we finally have the format for it to really reach the masses, in the same way that, like, when we had, we went from the LP, or, the big record vinyl players, to we went from vinyl to, like, basically cassettes, and then from cassettes to CDs, and then from CDs to MP3s. At each generation, the accessibility to the format of music changed. So music went from being something that you could play at your home on a record player to something you could take anywhere with you. You could literally walk around. And then from there, now it's something that you can stream to any device that you own in your home, car, or even TV.
Yeah, that's true and very convenient. Although I do miss those days when I would go and buy records and open them and smell them and look at the various, pieces of information in it. But certainly, so Q, we spoke about collectibles, digital art. You started touching on music. What are the other use cases where you see NFTs can grow and become more interesting?
I think NFTs right now have the ability to be utilized in many different facets, right? So you're seeing the POAPs, or proof of attendance protocols, and that's kind of cool, because, like, you could do a live podcast show, and all the people that came to the live show, you could give them an NFT or a POAP NFT, and now there's, like, this proof that I attended the live show, and you could then say you can exchange these POAPs for an exclusive gift from our sponsor. And that's a pretty tried and true method that, like, we've seen it work, the POAPs. We haven't really seen it be adopted by, a mainstream podcaster. But if you were to start doing that now, you're creating a whole new market, a whole new culture of, like, how NFTs could be consumed. And that's just one example. Like, if I worked in a business, or I had a business, and I had, like, in the remote world where everything's on Zoom, one thing that I've seen is, people don't show up to meetings on time, right? Like, everybody's cool with being 5 minutes late. The funny thing about it is, it's okay for one meeting, but when you start to do 10 meetings, 5 times 10 is 50 minutes. You lost that in a day. So if I had a company, I probably would incentivize my team by saying, whoever gets to the meeting first and logs it, they get to get the NFT from the meeting. And I would create, like, NFTs of the internal meeting notes, like, right? So there's, like, we already have the digital document, like, just make an NFT of that, or the agenda. And then the way you create value is, there's already a community. Your workplace is a community. You're, like, those are people that you talk to, that you're acquainted with. And then from there, you can just assign value to said NFT. So you can say, if you have the meeting notes, if you, let's say you've been first, 5 times in a row, you've got 5 of these meeting NFTs. 5 meeting note NFTs can be traded for, let's just say, $500, but you have to have 5. Well, now you've got a game that is happening within your own workplace on people showing up to meetings on time. And you did it all with NFTs, and you changed the culture. And you're like, Q, that sounds stupid. It sounds crazy. It's like, if I talk to you in 2010 and said that you're going to text your employees and you're going to, like, communicate, like, in like AOL Instant Messenger, you would have laughed at me and said, that makes no sense. Email's forever the wave. It's grailed, that's the gold standard. And then, 3 years later, an app called Slack comes along, and NASA uses it. And then the world is like, oh, Slack is the thing. And so now every company has Slack or Microsoft Teams or, like Workplace or something. And it's crazy. Like, Slack got acquired by Salesforce. So that's how instrumental it was. Now is the time to go ahead and and hop into the whole bucket of NFTs and say, where can I apply it to, my daily life? And, I could literally do this all day with you. Like you said, like, hey, let's just come up with utilities or use cases for NFTs. Those are just two that come to mind that aren't necessarily digital art based, but like would work probably pretty successfully.
You know that the title of this podcast is Lux and Friends, where Lux stands obviously for luxury, which is the industry I come from, and many listeners do work in the luxury industry. Since some of them may not be overly familiar with NFTs, can anybody mint one?
Yeah, if you have a crypto wallet, you can mint an NFT. So the first step that I've found that has been super helpful in getting people into the world of NFTs is helping them understand what a crypto wallet is and like the safe practices and record keeping for crypto wallets and how to keep them secure, how to like transact safely on the internet. And in our experience, just in helping people do those things properly, we've seen tremendous uptick in people abilities to go and just mint NFTs and buy NFTs and get familiar with it. So the crypto wallet is your way in. I'm actually working on some stuff to make that easier.
Are you watching what's going on in the luxury industry? Every brand is creating an NFT. There has been the first Metaverse Fashion Week on Decentraland last week. Dolce & Gabbana are jumping on it. So are many other brands. What's your take? What are you seeing happening there?
Hats off to Philip Klein. I think Philip Klein gets the Decentraland award, right? Like they really, really thought that through. They even are now accepting crypto in their stores, which is just like crazy, right? So I think the metaverse is definitely the next evolution. If you read the book, that's how I end the book. And I'm happy to let you know that we have a new book coming out in May. It's called the Metaverse Handbook, and it will pick up where the NFT Handbook left off. So I'll be jumping into, what is a metaverse and breaking down some of the examples that you've just mentioned here on the podcast. But the way I see the metaverse is if you have a bunch of digital goods and collectibles, you're going to need a place for them to exist and stay. And the metaverse gives you these capsules to put your NFTs in. And it also is a great marketing moment for a company or a brand, because if you make an NFT, unless you have an insular community, nobody really cares, right? Like, I mean, if you're not in the Bored Ape Yacht Club and you're not a part of the apes, nobody's life really changes outside of the people in the club. And it's kind of funny. Like, it's like the same thing is true for any other club you think about, right? Like if you're into a country club and like, you're golfing with your buddies, like the four of you that have the tea time that are playing, whether you're competing or you're just playing by yourselves, your lives change because you're in the country club, and maybe your family, like the immediate, your immediate family members' lives change. But like the rest of the world doesn't really care. Like if you have a membership to Soho House, it doesn't really matter for the rest of the world. It just matters for you and the associates at Soho House. And so with NFTs, that's still true because the community is the people that value the digital collectible. When you have a metaverse, what you do is you kind of separate that community. You say, hey, that community is always welcome. You can hang out here. You own some of the stuff that we might display, but the average person can come and learn more about what we are, what our beliefs are, how we look at, said NFTs and Web3 and the metaverse. And it's a good way to like just showcase who you are. And I think the way to think about it, if you don't know anything about crypto or Web3, is, 15 years ago, you would be dying to have a website. You'd be like, yeah, we need a website. We need a website. This internet thing's going to be huge. I think looking at it now, if you're a brand, a company, a service, a product, you should be saying, we need a metaverse and figuring out what metaverse you need. So the Metaverse Handbook, it's coming out soon. And I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth on the things I just mentioned in that book.
Very, very interesting. Let me ask you one final question. Maybe I shouldn't ask it because I see your excitement about the subject, and I share the same. And I'm also lucky that I live in a very crypto-friendly country, the United Arab Emirates. I'm in Dubai, which is great. And I share the same excitement. But let me ask you this final question. Do you think we are presently experiencing a disruptive or a deceptive growth of NFTs?
That's a great question. I think it's both. I think there's a little bit of there's some Decepticons out there. Some I like that term, Decepticon, like from Transformers, where people are being deceptive, but they also are conning people out of their money. So that's very much happening. And then there's also a lot of disruption happening. When you look at what people did with his everydays, or even what Pac did, I mean, they're dethroning the world's most expensive living artists. And if you have any experience or know anything about the fine art world and traditional art, that's a big deal, right? Like, you know, if I would have given you a ticket 2 years ago and said, you know, who's gonna sell for more money, Damien Hirst or a no-name guy from Appleton, Wisconsin, you probably would go with Damien Hirst all day, every day. He's got the track record. If I said Jeff Koons or an unnamed artist named Pac, you probably would have went with Jeff Koons. In the history, it's just it's not going that way. So I think that is very disruptive, and it's exciting to see the work that, you know, Mike Winkelmann and you know, many others that have followed suit are doing. And I think where we will continuously go is we'll see some of these innovators that have been working in the shadows and just thinking about some of these technologies continue to change the world as we know it, with their ideas. And the best thing that's happened now is everyone has a platform because of Web2, and everyone now has the ability to like publish something and share something with the world. You now have this world of Web3 where people can now own the things that they publish or they share and they promote. So it's going to be disruptive on that front, but we're very much in the first inning.
And it's exciting. I agree with you. Qharrison, thank you for being on Lux and Friends.
Thank you for having me. I appreciated it very much.